Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that given that John, George, and Dave are all working together as a trio of a team to really take care of Star Wars moving ahead, a lot of fans can feel very reassured and confident that they are about to tell very good stories that will satisfy a majority of the fandom moving ahead, with all the projects like Mando, Ahsoka, and even a lot more that will be announced at Celebration and D23 later this year. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing that Disney and Lucasfilm have been preparing behind closed doors are a lot of changes that are about to be implemented into the sequels, into other types of Star Wars lore and canon that already exists, and also by bringing Star Wars Legends back to life. Reviving those stories and bringing them into the Disney canon to coexist. Now, we already know that John and Dave are leading a lot of that, but George Lucas is also having a great hand in calling some of the shots, making some of the decisions on a lot of this stuff, and really just making sure that Star Wars fans are in for quite a very big surprise and a lot of teases and twists and turns here and there. Now, with that being said, one major retcon that was recently approved by both Disney and George Lucas himself toward the sequel trilogy, of course, as a trilogy, has a lot to do with specifically the character of Luke Skywalker and exactly how it's going to change your view in both events of The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and even elements of The Rise of Skywalker to an extent. So, this is basically George's latest attempt to kind of add new meaning to some of the films through drastically changing some of the canon material around and really making sure that he's adding more value and more story behind some of the moments that happen in the sequels. Now, with that being said and all, with many new Star Wars projects in the works at Disney and Lucasfilm, creators John and Dave have been getting prepared to make some big announcements at this year's Celebration event. Given that Lucasfilm is preparing to go under many different changes, creator George Lucas recently completely altered the events of the sequel trilogy as far as canon goes, that's happening behind closed doors right now, that will go into full effect next year of 2024. Now further, it's noted that Lucas is actively making a canon that during the destruction of Luke's Jedi Temple and his Jedi Order, as seen in The Last Jedi, that Luke Skywalker's wife, known as Mara Jade, was actually trapped inside the temple and met her demise from the flames at the hands of Ben Solo. This is said to be one of the major new reasons Luke has a big meltdown and leaves the Jedi Order and goes into hiding. Lucas, Favreau, and Filoni are working on this right now as well, after George came up with the idea, and that this is modeled after what happens in Legends, in which Jacen Solo actually poisons Mara Jade. So let me just stop here for 1 second. Now, before I get to the next big bit, we already know that Lucas has always wanted to drastically change the sequels because he has a lot of things against them. And basically Disney's approving and allowing a lot of this to happen because at this point in time they're just desperate for any kind of change and meaning of these movies. Now, let's be clear and real. Do I believe that this is going to fix the sequels in their entirety? I doubt that, but it is going to add some more value to some of the reasoning behind some of the characters' motives. I think that this is a better motive for Luke to abandon the Jedi Order than the other motive, which was because he lost Ben Solo by the dark side via Snoke, who was of course later on controlled by Palpatine. So at the end of the day, what they are doing is that they're making it more personal now for Luke Skywalker on a deep level, to make him actually retreat from the Jedi Order and to just go into full-on isolation. That brings us to the next big part about all of this too, is that Lucas is also making sure that it's going to be modeled after Legends as much as possible in order to kind of make it coexist with how the movies are already made. Obviously, there are scenes in The Last Jedi where Luke is isolated. Same goes for The Force Awakens, so you really can't undo that segment. You can't undo the segment that he's in isolation, but what they can do and are doing is exactly why he's isolated, and they're changing that around drastically as we speak. Again, all this canon stuff related to Mara Jade getting destroyed by Kylo Ren is going to be made canon into full effect by next year. So that brings us to the next biggest question of all, is exactly what else are they going to go to do beyond all of this, you know, with Luke Skywalker's story. Now, on top of this, Lucas is also described to be adding a deeper story about Luke and Mara well after the events of the original trilogy when they are older, and is making it officially canon by next year that will retell the sequels and reasoning behind Luke Skywalker's motive to close himself off from the Force and to go into hiding. Now, this is something that Bob Iger approved, and the higher-ups looked into it over and approved this retcon as well for the sequel canon. Additionally, Lucas is making a canon that Snoke informed Ben Solo that if they cannot defeat Skywalker, then they must strike his heart, and it's said to be based on an old tale that Lucas took inspiration from to use in the new sequel canon lore. So basically, Snoke, who by the way is controlled by Palpatine is a very smart Sith. He knows Luke, he knows his weak spots here and there, because he is the son of Darth Vader after all, who actually had a weak spot for love and romance and stuff like that, and losing somebody that he's romantically involved in. So Palpatine most likely figures that by using Snoke to tell Ben Solo to strike his heart, that's the best way to throw Luke out of the Jedi Order and to completely just unmotivate him to stay involved. And basically that's the reasoning behind all of this, is that they want to create a deeper story of how Luke went into hiding and exactly how Palpatine, aka Snoke, knew that that would work, because it's judging by Skywalker's family, the genes. Being, of course, Luke the son of Anakin, Palpatine took a wild, chance, assuming that he would react in the same manner. So, basically, Palpatine is the puppeteer behind all the Skywalkers going into downfall. If you look at it like this, you have Palpatine manipulating Anakin about losing his loved one at, through childbirth and stuff like that. And then you have Palpatine distorting Ben Solo's view of Luke, as well as, feeling neglected and stuff like that from his parents, driving him to the dark side. Palpatine also drew Luke Skywalker to not necessarily the dark side, but a deep depression that left him isolated. So it is quite a very interesting thing thematically that Palpatine literally devalued all the Skywalkers into becoming either dark side characters or characters that are dealing with deep, sad emotions that actually impacts the Jedi Order to an extent. So overall, I think that this is a entertaining move by George, especially, of course, Disney. Do I think it's necessary? Maybe not. Do I think it'll be entertaining, like I say? Yes, I do. Do I think it's going to fix anything? It might for some people. I don't think it will on the majority. I don't think it's going to do anything like that. But nonetheless, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you guys have to say about all of this. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.